Hi, I'm Mike Hutjens, Extension Specialist here at the University of Illinois, and today's discussion will feature fresh cow feeding strategies. Our learning objectives include 1, to assess fresh cow nutrient guidelines, 2, to evaluate new research results with fresh cow nutrition, and thirdly, compare management factors for fresh cow groupings. Let's take a quick look at nutrient profile. This actually is the NRC 2001 guideline tables right from their publication. It also appears in the new Hutjens Dairyman Feeding Guide. And today we will feature looking at the fresh cow. What's interesting here is dry matter intake. That becomes a hugely important factor, as this is very dynamic depending on how many days in milk we have. Now you can come down and you can take a look. Here is the close-up dry cow in early lactation or fresh group. And you'll notice some interesting things. Not only dry matter changes, but you can see metabolized protein goes up even higher here. We're trying to meet the amino acid profile of these cows with these lower dry matter intakes. So if this number goes up to, say, 40 pounds, this number would drop down. Notice about a 10% increase in energy density here, and then obviously modest decreases on NDF fiber and increases in sugars and starches, or NFC. In the fresh cow ration, we would recommend using some of the same ingredients in the high group TMR. For example, if you're feeding haylage in the high group TMR, we would recommend to have some haylage in the fresh cow ration as well. I want to make sure we have functional fiber there. That could come from haylage already that's in the ration. I want 3 or 4 pounds of inch particle length or more at that level. Or if you don't have that, adding 2 or 3 pounds or 4 pounds of baled hay, or 1 or 2 pounds of processed straw that's shorter than 1 inch in length. There are a number of fresh cow additives that you could look at. I'd recommend a yeast product, rumenzin, chromium, buffers, and organic trace minerals. You may want to also make sure you have adequate levels of vitamin E in there for immune function. When moving cows, I'd like to step up the nutrients. We just saw that in the previous PowerPoint. And one thing you can also watch is look at rumen fill. Kind of look at the left side of the cow to see if cows are really filling up, and that could be another benchmark to look at. Here is some new research that you should be aware of. Well, first one's going to be hypocalcemia, or low blood calcium, work primarily from Gary Etzel at the University of Illinois. And what we have here is basically the cow calves in yellow. Red is kind of the cut point. Some people have moved it up to 8.2, 8.4 milligrams per deciliter. Here's a cow with milk fever. Notice she gets down below 5. This cow is down. And the green cow is the cows that do not develop milk fever, but you can see they are below the cut point. That's hypocalcemic cows. And about a third of the cows that are older cows in the herd will be exposed or suffered with those lower calcium levels. What effects does this have? Wisconsin researchers say that low blood calcium certainly have effects on the reproductive tract and ketosis. And the second bullet item says immune function, really a big factor in terms of the ability to combat diseases and bacterial challenges in this fresh cow. We have 2 tools to use. Anionic product, of course, is used in the close-up cow. You can look at that at a different PowerPoint. The one we want to mention today is calcium supplementation using a bolus or paste or drench. We want to add 50 to 60 grams of available calcium to this cow. Sources could include calcium chloride, calcium sulfate, and calcium propionate here. We would be adding this bolus or paste products at calving, and then 12 to 24 hours later if needed, meaning the cow has not come out of her low blood calcium level. Let's look at another research study from Michigan State by Adam Locke looking at adding free fatty acids to a fresh cow ration. Here is his design, and you'll see the data in a minute. Fresh cows from the first 21 days received 1.5% of their ration dry matter with various levels of palmitic and oleic fatty acids. Cows then at day 22 were removed to a ration with no supplemental fatty acids and determined if there was a carryover effect for the next 40 days. And I'll give you a clue. You won't see this data, but yes, there is, which makes sense. Once we get these cows to peak, generally, if we got the nutrients there, we will hold it. Here's the research results you can look at very quickly. Over here is, you can see the control, high palmitic acid, 80%, 70 and 60. You can see the reciprocal oleic acids. That, of course, is a 1-carbon double bond fatty acid. And the other ones would be other fatty acids that would be in that product they're using. Notice the milk production responses, pretty dramatic, significantly improvement here. And you can see while there is no differences here, there's a trend continue here up about at least 4 pounds more milk. A dry matter intake really had a similar effect, but not statistically significant, an increase. So the girls were eating more groceries here. Butterfat, you can see we end up getting a nice increase on butterfat, about 0.6 of a pound. And of course, no negative effects or effects on NEFAs, which are indication of body weight loss, certainly below the threshold point at 1.2, and no effects on insulin. So the metabolism of the cows were not grossly affected, but you can see a nice increase in milk production when we add these fatty acids here. And again, you can see the response varied, and you can determine which level you'd want to take a look at. Next, look at some work here at the University of Illinois by Juan Luer's group, looking at feeding both pre- and post-calving rumen-protected methionine. The results were, first, and you can see the level, typically around 10 grams as a thumb rule here. A big increase in energy-corrected milk, really huge in this study here. You can see dry matters came up with it, perhaps not as much dry matter increase as milk per response, but that certainly helps us out. And then Dr. Luer did some genomic testing here on gene turn on, and you can see an increase in liver function index, meaning a healthier liver, increase in neutrophil function, helps the immune system, and reduction in oxidative stress and inflammation, which of course is also related to immune drag or requirements on that cow. Finally, let's end up at the University of Wisconsin, Cornell, looking at some of their work here on ketosis. What we're really looking at here, of course, is this big negative energy balance here in the first 2 weeks after calving, and this is some work from Penn State. Now, what happens when you have high levels of BHBA, which is associated with negative energy balance? You can see about a third of the cows will experience this, even first calf heifers. It will impact milk yield and reproductive performance. That's important. That's the cut point that's being used by most labs, 1.2 millimolars per liter here, using one of the test strip systems here, or you can monitor on DHIA, testing fresh cows through some labs in Canada and Wisconsin, for example. You usually want to check the cows the first 20 days after calving, and if they are showing elevated levels, we are probably going to drench them in propylene glycol until they respond. Here's some new data. Wisconsin is testing herds now, and they have monitors on 3,400 herds and over 200,000 cows for the first 20 days. And they saw in first lactation cows that had ketosis, using that cut point, 22% chance this cow will have it in the next lactation. Older cows, almost 50%. So certainly there is some memory, if you wish, when cows have this disorder. What does it have in terms of conception rate? You can see that a bigger effect in conception rate on first lactation cows or heifers. Culling rates, monitor that, but they're pretty similar as well. And the cost, you can see, varies depending on which lactation number we're in, but significant cost to each of these cases. Finally, let's finish up with Cornell University, some work done looking at weight loss on lame cows. What we're looking at here is a fat pad. That is indicated over here. As you can look at that, you can see this would be the fat pad here. And what that does, it provides a cushion to the foot. And that is made up of various types of monounsaturated fatty acids. And that's important because it gives some cushion. Now, here's the measurements they made. They will look at what loss of the DCT, which stands for digital cushion thickness. It was 15% lower in lame cows. It bottomed out at the lowest level about 120 days in milk, so it certainly mirrors probably the body condition score changes. And therefore, we would recommend, if possible, try to minimize body condition score drops to less than a half a body condition score after calving. This really impacts dry matter intake factors in the environment that these cows are found in. So our take-home messages for today's program, we need a fresh cow approach in feeding programs. Be aware of some of the early signs such as ketosis, low blood calcium, and as this slide says, a little problem can become a very big problem several days, several weeks, or for that total lactation. Treat timely and appropriately, and we want to reduce the number of cows that leave the herd in early lactation because that's going to impact profitability of the cow. Thanks. Have a great day.